episode 17. You have chosen, or been chosen, to listen to one of our finest podcasts. We thought so much of episode 17 that we elected to leave a 5-star review on the iTunes so thoughtfully provided by our benefactors. We have been proud to call Video Game Chat our home, and so, whether you are here to stay or passing through on your way to parts unknown, welcome to episode 17. It's probably not safer here.
Hello podcast listeners, welcome and thanks for joining us. You're listening to the Video Game Chat Podcast, a fortnightly podcast talking about games, tech and other nerdy goodness. I'm Jordy and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Rob.
Hello.
Gary.
Hello.
And Brendan. Well, this episode we are going to be talking about Half-Life Alyx, as I, as of today, have finally completed it after being riddled with potential spoilers by Brendan.
I mean, it was your own fault.
I always kept them glancing. They were shots past your head.
So we would try and keep the first half of this podcast spoiler free, and then we will announce when major spoilers will appear, so that if anyone who is listening who would like to play Alyx and not have the game spoiled, they can turn off and enjoy.
Leave us a 5-star review.
Yeah, and leave us a 5-star review. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, great one, Gary. I like that. So, where do we begin, boys? Who would like to set the scene of Half-Life Alyx and explain what Half-Life Alyx is?
I think the problem with the question is it's very broad. So I think what we need to do is
It's not really that broad, is it? It's the first proper like AAA studio developed like VR title that's to like the same quality as you would expect in a regular game, you know, as opposed to up until Alyx and a few others like Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners, VR games were pretty much like an afterthought, so to speak. You know, they weren't the best looking games, they weren't the most in depth or the lengthiest in terms of content. But
I'll use one of Brendan's analogies of lengthy tech demos.
Yeah. Like it's the recurring sort of thing is a lot of them are just kind of like party games. Like they just feel like little, you know, not very serious party games that are just built around a gimmicky motion control thing. More importantly, Alyx is the first Half-Life game 13 years.
Oh yeah.
Since Half-Life 2 Episode 2 was released in 2007 and ended on probably the most famous fucking cliffhanger in video games history. I'm not sure whether this counts as a spoiler, considering it came out in 2007.
Well, yeah,
but
it's come out in
Black Mesa
2007.
scientist Eli Vance was scooped up by an advisor in a warehouse and had his brain sucked out in front of his daughter and Gordon Freeman. Not exactly a wholesome family entertainment moment.
No.
And the game closes and fades to black, looking at Alyx Vance weeping over the corpse of her dead father, and then 13 years of silence.
Oh god. I remember finishing that and just being like, God damn, I need episode 3 now. I need to fucking avenge Eli. I need to go fight. We need to finish this. We need to go find the Borealis and fucking finish this now because I am angry. And then just nothing.
Just nothing.
So
But
just left
that's
us
where
seething.
I remember how fucking angry I had been the whole way through to even when they announced Alyx, and they kind of did it in a really weird way because it just kind of came out of nowhere. There was no big show. There was no, E3 in the moment of fucking Gabe walking onto the stage. It was just a trailer was released. Well, they announced it first, and then the next day a trailer was dropped. And I was fucking annoyed because after 13 years of just nothing, no fucking mention of what was going to be happening, a VR game dropped and I had no interest in VR.
and that was probably the turning point for you.
Yeah, like that was one of those things of in denial. I didn't watch the trailer for a while. I refused to watch the trailer. And then one day I found myself thinking about Half-Life 2 again, which I will do invariably, as a lot of Half-Life fans will do. And I ended up watching the trailer, and it was just like, it clicked in my head, and I was just like, fuck it, I'm getting a VR headset. They got me. Valve fucking got me.
And out of the four of us, you were the first to get a VR headset as well, despite being the most adamant, like the most against getting a VR headset. You were the first out of the four of us to get one.
Yeah, I feel like I was probably the perfect sort of test subject for what Valve were trying to do. Put a bit of faith in the fact that they can push VR beyond just gimmicky party games. And I think I've already said to you guys, but part of the thing we could probably discuss on this is that I've been going through the article, documentary, digital art book thing called Half-Life Alyx Final Hours, like £7 on Steam. I don't know what to call that thing. Gary, you've been taking a look at it. Like, what do you even call it? Like a digital magazine article?
I would probably call it a compilation of interviews, almost like a blog. It feels to me like a blog, like a long interactive blog where you've got multiple interviews in there. You've got thought pieces, almost like a autobiographic piece of multiple different people. And then you have videos, you have really nice parallax 3D scenes in the background, which is nice. So, like, it's stuff that you see in Alyx already, but it's just nice to see it in that kind of like fake 3D environment from a different perspective. And you also get like behind the scenes kind of commentary, pictures, photos, illustrations. So it's kind of like it's almost like a blog kind of documentary, kind of autobiographic piece. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but it's that kind of thing.
Like, I think Steam describes it as an interactive storybook, which is probably as close as it's going to get. Like, the easiest way I could summarize it is they did the Half-Life 2 Raising the Bar book, and it was basically like a coffee table book, like a big coffee table book full of these sort of interviews and concept art and things that were just never seen before, never released to the public. And it's incredible, like huge amount of detail in it. And it was probably one of the most enlightening things I've ever seen in Valve content in the last 13 years. It clarified the last 13 years for me immensely, because Jeff Keighley, who's the guy who wrote it, was basically given full access to Valve. They just brought him in, and I've no idea who it was in Valve, but he does make a point about they just basically informed the company, tell this guy anything he needs to know, give him full cooperation, and so they did. And he makes it clear that in the time before Alyx, like, there was all sorts of rumors and all about a Half-Life 3 coming, and that Valve were working on it at times, and it popped up and then it fell apart. And then in, 2013, 2014, Mark Laidlaw, one of the Half-Life 2 devs, left and wrote a blog piece called Epistle 3, where he basically wrote down what he planned the plot of Half-Life 3 to be, because he thought it was never going to be made. And that seemed to be it. That was the sort of vibe that, that's Half-Life 3 dead, it's never going to happen. And it just turns out that in this time, Source 2 was the problem, basically. Valve has a flat hierarchy. They don't have, project managers that tell everyone what they're going to be working on. Their desks are all on wheels. So if there's a project that they're interested in, they literally just wheel their desk over to that part of the office and decide to chip in and pick up a task. And as a result of this, it's kind of been a mess for them to try and get development going. And Source 2 became a thing, and they basically put all their effort into that. They couldn't make games because Source 2 wasn't finished. So things like Left 4 Dead 3, that was a project at one point that was being made, and you might remember there was concept art leaked of that a while back.
Where they'd remade, what was it, the plantation level from Left 4 Dead 2 in Source 2, and it looked...
Looks incredible, yeah.
That is in a video in the Final Hours thing. You can go in and see that render, and it pans through it. So it was a real thing. It was done on Source 2, and it's part of the whole thing of, because Source 2 wasn't finished, they couldn't build a full game on it, so they didn't. So there was this huge period of no games being made, and they addressed the fact that Valve employees weren't happy with this, that people were leaving, senior devs who were involved in Half-Life and the like just left. So there was this sort of thing of, we need something big, we need this sort of game to reignite our creative elements. And at the time they had started dipping into their hardware and their VR, and after pitching a few ideas with the Steam Lab stuff, they finally settled on, a Half-Life VR game can work, it could be compelling. So they did it, and they hopped into it. And this is basically the reason why they haven't done anything in 10 years, because Source 2 has been in development the entire time.
Oh, right.
And like Brendan said, this kind of documentary article story, interactive storybook that we're discussing, I would say both me and Brendan, and I'm sure Jordy and Rob, when they get a chance to fully read it, I haven't read the whole thing, but if you're interested in the inner workings of Valve, highly recommend checking it out. It's called Half-Life Alyx: Final Hours by Jeff Keighley, and we're going to be touching upon certain points that are brought up in this storybook, but we cannot go into it in full detail because there is so much to go into, and it really does explain why Valve have been quiet for such a long time. And it's like Brendan said, it's very enlightening and kind of, it's nice to see that they didn't just stop working on games. There was always something in the background that they were working on. But as Brendan already mentioned, that the sticking point for them was that they always wanted to push the tech further. Valve have always been a company to push and develop technology to its fullest potential, and they wanted to do a new engine, and ultimately that was their downfall for creating new games, and they mention that in the book.
I wouldn't say it was probably their downfall. It's probably them taking that much time to perfect their system to then start making games for only that system. So I assume now it's been made and they've released Alyx. Now they'll be working on more VR, maybe not VR titles, along sort of the same lines sort of thing. Right?
Yeah, they confirmed, I think at the time that Alyx was announced, that they were working on 3 titles. So Alyx was one of them.
So how long was it since Alyx has been announced?
Literally the end of 2019. If you this is part of this whole development thing,
and they were updated. They were doing that all the way up until release, weren't they?
Release, yeah. Russell was recorded. Russell, the character who speaks to Alyx throughout the entire game, he was only introduced at the start of 2020. They literally changed the whole narrative of the game in the last couple of months. Insane. So that's part of the spoilers that we won't reveal on the podcast. They talk about what the original storyline was going to be for Alyx. And it changed pretty much at the last moment because people weren't happy with it.
So I haven't
completely.
I haven't got to that point, Brendan, but we may or may not discuss that later. But we're going back to the point about when it's their downfall. What I want to clarify is it wasn't their downfall as a company. It was their downfall in that they couldn't produce games because they were relying upon this new technology that wasn't finalized. So that when I say their downfall, obviously Valve is fucking huge and their games are incredible.
Well, yeah, they're the biggest, one of the biggest markets online. Like they'll be able to. They're able to do it. They're able to not release games for 13 years because they can get money elsewhere.
Yeah, but their downfall of creating games was purely down to the capabilities of the technology that they were trying to develop. That is why just for clarification.
The only real downfall was in the sense of their reputation took a major hit. Like, a lot of people were hostile and bitter towards Valve because of what happened and the length of time that they were silent. And I feel like maybe that went into how they treated Jeff Keighley. Like, when he opens with this whole thing of, Valve told their guys, be completely open with this guy. If there's anything he needs to know, just tell him. And I thought, well, that just sounds like a load of nonsense. Obviously, they're not going to tell them everything. And then you go into like the details of all the good and bad of how their company is run. And it's just like, oh, okay, so they have just decided to basically tell them everything.
Yeah. One point that I remember reading is they said, oh, it's clear to see, or Jeff said, it's very clear to see that the company is basically all white males, but they are looking to change that. And I was like, well,
like no hold barred.
Yeah,
that's all our jobs. That's all our potential jobs that Valve down the drain, then, boys.
But it's just like, yeah, we got a decade of silence because they were just putting their heart and soul into this engine, and they kept hitting this obstacle of they couldn't really do anything until the engine was ready. And when it was ready, it opened up the ability to get a whole team working on Alyx and doing incredible amounts of work on VR in a very short period of time, and getting it out and doing a highly fucking polished AAA VR title for everyone to enjoy.
What I really enjoyed by reading this interactive storybook, we need to find a better word for it. I feel like interactive storybook doesn't really do it justice. It sounds like it's like a novel instead of like a behind the scenes, fully in-depth look into the inner workings of Valve.
It literally has a 3D scan of their entire office that you can walk through.
Yeah. It's a very comprehensive document. But what I really enjoyed was the VR game or the kind of tech demo. Steam is it Steam Labs? Is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
Or, yeah, Steam Labs.
Yeah, Aperture Labs.
Yeah, they had at the very towards the deadline for that being released, alongside the HTC Valve, they had the one developer had an idea to create a kind of first-person kind of arcadey shooter with Half-Life 2 assets, and that kind of got parked for Alyx. Like, I'm not going to go into the details, so you can read it further if you want to, because I'm kind of paraphrasing it a little bit, but that kind of became the predecessor to Alyx in some sort of manner.
Yeah, well, that's it. They run through the explanation of things where it was when they start. Like, I remember ages ago there was a leak that came out with some sort of Steam VR update, where HLVR was a line in the code, and people are like, "Fucking Half-Life VR, what does this mean?" And that was at the time that they were planning for a VR game that was just going to be Half-Life 2 assets. So it was kind of like that shooter thing. The idea being that you could just play through parts of these levels using Half-Life 2 on a kind of upscaled Source 2 engine system for it. And eventually that just completely got switched around, and they went all the way in on Alyx instead, which I'm glad they did, because the thing's a fucking masterwork.
It was codenamed Hot Dog, right?
No, I believe that was something else.
Oh.
There's a lot of things about all that because, when they use code names, the code names leak. So as a solution to this, they decided to name one of their projects Hot Dog.
Why not?
Yeah.
It seems like Fall Guys has taken inspiration from that.
But what were your impressions, Jordan, now that you have finally played through the entire fucking game?
Yeah, really good. I do love the gunplay is really cool. The puzzles really good as well. Infuriating at some points. Like, there were some points where I was stuck in a room just looking for like an outlet or something to start a puzzle, and I was like, where the fuck is this? I cannot find this anywhere for the love of money. And then you just sort of say, oh, look at the ceilings or look at the floor, and then I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, there it is. I would have literally spent hours looking for certain things if you weren't sort of watching my stream and sort of being in my ear, just going, yeah, just look over there. Look over there somewhere.
I should have put on a New Zealand accent for it.
Yeah, you should have just been Russell. Russell and Brendan in my ear.
That was a bad accent. I apologise.
I can't do a New Zealand accent anyway.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I really enjoy it. I hope that Valve do dip their toes in, or not dip their toes, but jump fully nude into the VR pool and give us a load more VR titles, because I really enjoyed everything. Like, all the guns felt really good. They were, I didn't have a favourite or anything. Like, they were all just as good for their uses, and it was a lovely mix of action and horror.
God, the genuinely one of the best
absolute
horror sections in any video game I've ever played, let alone in VR. As VR goes, that was a standout experience for me when I played through that section.
Does that count as a spoiler?
Are we going to discuss this?
What's that?
If we're going to discuss it, we probably need to say spoiler alert.
does it count as a spoiler? It's not a plot spoiler so much, but it is like it's a key part of the game that's quite a flagship moment.
Oh, well, yeah,
Are we going to discuss it
I've not
further?
said.
Let's slap down the fucking spoiler line.
Yeah, let's
It's
get
been close to 30 minutes.
Yeah, we're close enough to 30 minutes to call it there. So yeah, from now on, it's going to be a bit spoilery. So if you do not want to have the game spoiled, please turn off now. And while you're turning off, jump onto iTunes and give us one of those 5-star reviews. That'd be great.
Well, maybe we can say light spoilers from now on, and if there's a heavy spoiler,
no, this is going to be heavy from
is it going to be
the
heavy
get-go.
spoilers?
Yeah.
Okay, fine, heavy spoilers.
Fucking Jeff, that's what you're talking about, isn't
Oh,
it?
yes, it's Jeff.
Yes, what a man.
Oh, my God.
Not the Jeff from the documentary.
No, I was going to say, I did jump into Jordy's stream of him playing through the Jeff section, and unlike, I'm assuming, me, Brendan, and Gary, he just assumed it was a straight-up boss and immediately tried to kill him with an SMG.
Oh, yeah, I did immediately try and kill him.
God,
Yeah, of course.
really?
Yeah, as soon as he smashes through that wall, Jordy just pulled up his SMG and just... It didn't
And
go
then
well.
died
Yeah.
because Jeff decided to fucking eat him.
I
So
think,
yeah, for listeners that haven't actually played Half-Life but are just sort of listening through this anyway to get the details, during a segment in the game, you go into a vodka distillery. And within that distillery, you encounter another human, another sort of member of, I don't think they count as the Resistance, it's just a guy called Larry who's been caught in a barnacle. And you free him and he thanks you and he warns you about Jeff. Jeff can't see. It's a blind, mutated Combine victim. Or Zen victim, I suppose. It is a mutated human whose face splits open, and he can't see.
He looks
but
like a
can hear.
Demogorgon.
He does, exactly like that.
he does.
And you spend this entire length of gameplay using sound for your survival, so you can direct Jeff by throwing vodka bottles around the place.
And the whole
And it
time
is just
you're
intense.
walking around with like your hand over your mouth to pass through
Yes,
spores
'cause-
so you don't cough as a character and make noise. And
And the most terrifying moment is, well, there's two, when you lock Jeff in a kind of freezer thing. So you think, oh, fuck, I'm free of him at last, so I can open this door because I've tricked him into the freezer in a sort of Tomb Raider 2-esque moment. And then he breaks out and joins you in a closed lift. Just the two of you, and you have to hit the button right beside him.
and you see a head crab in the lift, and he just fucking obliterates it. And that's the moment where you're like, this guy's gonna kill me.
for me, it was that bit where you lock him in the freezer, and you're like, oh, thank fuck, I'm done. And you get like one part of a puzzle done, and it's like, yeah, you got to go in the freezer now. And I was like,
it's amazing because it's sort of, I've not encountered anything like that in a VR game. It is very unique, and they did it really well.
That could be a VR game in itself, though. You being trapped with a monster and having to. I'm trying to think what sort of games, a bit like Amnesia, or what was the other one that was a bit weird and a sort of a jump scary one where you had to avoid a monster.
Penumbra,
Alien
probably.
Isolation. Soma.
Yeah, Alien
any of
Isolation.
those.
Yeah, it's basically it's like Alien Isolation in a mini game within Alyx. Like
Yeah,
you
it
could
was just
probably
in
just
VR.
Yeah.
in VR. Yeah,
Well, I guess Alien Isolation was VR as well.
it's not. It's VR support.
You have to mod it. Yeah.
Yeah. you have to.
Yeah.
Not quite as good. But
yeah,
then, it all ends with dear old Jeff being put in a trash compactor, and you can choose whether to kill him or not. Jordan killed him.
You have to
Jordan, you killed him.
choose.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought you had to kill him.
So when I was playing through it, there's like the lever that you pull down, and I literally hovered over the red button, and I thought that the red button would close the door. I didn't realize that the lever would. So I closed the lever down and literally hovered over the button, saw the door was closing, and lifted off, and I was like, okay, cool, I don't need to press the red button.
Oh, I killed him.
Yeah,
Like,
I
terrible.
smushed him.
You monsters. The Jeff thing really sort of embodies how well paced the game is, I find, because you're working through these moments of, you're you're starting out getting to grips with weapons and things like that being introduced to City 17. Standard Half-Life fare, actually, when you start on that balcony looking over the city, they're giving you time to get used to how VR works. So there's all these little things you can pick up and interact with and get the feel for it all. And then as you go through your starting combat stuff, you get your underground section with the torch and fighting the various head crabs to get used to that. Once you hit Jeff, that's into like the serious part of the second act of the whole thing, second half rather. You're into the antlions next and down into that zoo, which I love the story about how the zoo came to be, because originally you were going to be fighting the antlions in a canal. It was just going to be a pretty plain canal system that you were fighting them in. But one of the devs went on holiday somewhere and they just saw the zoo. It was like, we got to do this. So they modeled an entire zoo in the game for the antlion sequence.
Throughout that entire sequence of the zoo, I was absolutely terrified that I'd be put up against a gorilla.
See, mine was just actual
that
lion.
one throwaway line about what would happen if a head crab got a gorilla. And you were like,
Yeah.
And I was like, no, don't have a fucking head crab on a gorilla, please, no.
Yeah, that could have been bad. But that, like, once it hits that part, that is firmly into that sort of, you're on that finish line slope because it heads into getting closer to the vault.
Yep.
And the action just ramps up completely. It's just like a constant gunfight the whole way through. I just fucking loved it. The pacing was incredible.
See, I think the main reason why it's taken me so long to finish it is because when I was doing the beginning bit, I found it a little bit, this is all just like a couple of little puzzles here, bits here. When it started getting into the shooting and the action and the fun shit, then I was like, all right, this is it now. Like this is go time. I guess it was just a case of I went all the way up to the points where I was like, I got up to the point where just before all the stuff starts getting interesting, and then stopped and just went.
So essentially, you got through the like world building and plot setup bit, and you were just like, ugh.
Yeah, and then when it started getting interesting,
you definitely
I just
didn't play
stopped
Half-Life
before
1,
it.
did you?
I didn't play Half-Life 1. No, I played Half-Life 2 and Episode 2. I've done all those.
Yeah, you would hate Half-Life 1 because it's famous for its opening sequence where you are locked in a tram for about 20 minutes. While
Yeah,
builds.
I've watched someone play it, and I skipped through most of it.
Jordy, are you telling us that you actually didn't enjoy Half-Life for the story? You just wanted to play a shooting game in VR?
Yeah. No, because I do. No. It's like it's the stuff that's like it's the stuff where you have to use your brain and like do puzzles.
You just want to shoot people. You just want to.
I was more into the action and the being scared than I was fiddling with wires or working out how how doors work, or like spinning orbs to connect little lights.
Oh, you're making me so mad.
It is a very different kind of puzzle system in the VR setting than it is from what we know from Half-Life 1 and 2. Like Half-Life 1 and 2 was big into its platforming puzzles and things like that. Whereas this was a lot more little itsy bitsy sort of puzzles where you have to track electricity wires and, guide a little dot through several rings to, diffuse a tripwire mine.
Tripwires
you were
fun.
very good at the combat, like you were headshotting everyone.
I didn't mind the tripwires. Tripwires were fun. I enjoyed the tripwire sequence. That was really cool. But I did just enjoy more the fact that I had loads of ammo and I was going around shooting everything. You guys were all like, oh, make sure you don't run out of ammo and stuff like that. And I was like, I've got tons of ammo. I had like max ammo on my pistol for like the whole game and like 600 bullets in the SMG. Like, the only thing
that's not even an exaggeration. He legitimately maxed out his pistol ammo.
Jesus.
He was just headshotting everyone.
How did you have so much ammo? Because I went through the whole game with fuck all.
Because
he wasted nothing. I shit you not. He headshot fucking everything. There was the heavy guys would come around the corner and Jordan would just like two-shot them.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Literally, I got the reflex sight on every gun pretty much, and I made sure that every time I hit someone, it was in the head. And I made sure that I put the pistol onto burst fire to one shot the barnacles every time because it only takes 3 bullets to kill them. The the zombies, I made sure that I only ever shot head crabs when they were like actually like vulnerable to like being killed and stuff like that. It's just I mathematically
You're
sort of realised this is how many bullets. Like in a game where bullets and stuff are hard to come by, you've got to know how many bullets it takes to take out each mob and how to be most effective.
Just completely emasculated by it, watching Jordan just breeze through these areas, which I had spent, for those gunfights, I was cowering behind an open car door for cover, just sort of crying and firing over the top of it.
I feel worried now. I feel like VR is like Jordy's testing ground for real life.
Oh yeah, put a real gun in. Like, if I play paintball, I'm lethal.
Oh God, Manifesto, Jordy.
Thank God you said paintball.
Because paintball's expensive as well. Each bullet costs a lot of money.
At least judging from my experience playing against me and Pavlov, especially you, Brendan, and you, Rob, you'll know that even with a shotgun point blank range, I can't fucking hit you.
The one thing that Jordan really suffered with was grenades, which came into its own. If you remember the segment just when you get into the vault and you manage to get past the Inception style glitchy thing, the corridor of grenades was just a nightmare. He could not throw them at all. They were dropping at his feet.
I think I did more damage to myself than the enemies did.
Oh God.
Yeah. So actually, just to give a bit of context again for listeners, the storyline here is you fight your way through the quarantine zone of City 17. The quarantine zone is where the Zen growths have been left unchecked, so it's unsafe for anyone to live in. So while you're going through here, you'll pass these like quarantine clearance crews where it's these Combine soldiers that have died and been consumed by all this weird alien matter. And in the middle of it all is the vault that's floating above the city. And in the vault, there is a weapon, as it's originally introduced. A weapon was captured after Black Mesa incident after the 7 Hours War. And in order to capture whatever this weapon is, they sealed an apartment block inside the vault. So this thing came down and just basically ripped the top half of an apartment block off and trapped whatever it was within it. And you're alluded to this with this whole thing of a mysterious silhouette, who I think is supposed to be Judith Mossman, Mothman.
Yeah, that was
Judith Mothman.
Judith Mothman.
Turns out
that's a great spin-off. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, that
Final Hours reveals
Mothman.
that she's someone else.
Oh,
that's not Mossman. That is someone entirely different that I won't reveal. Get Final Hours and you'll find out who it is. But
really?
This whole leads up to Alyx bringing the vault down and going into it. And this is where you endure this weird, trippy experience of going through these haunted corridors with mirrored rooms above you and things like that. And when you finally get through all this, and this is just after that sequence where it's just non-stop gunfire. It is just shooting constantly. And then you get this moment of peace. And then you enter this corridor. And this is where the deeper lore comes in, because the gravity gloves, the Russels that Alyx has on her hands, they each have a Zen crystal in them, which allows you to grab items. That's how they work. And if you've played Half-Life 2, you might recall Gordon was running around with a gravity gun, which had a gigantic orange Zen crystal in the front of it. And when he went inside, I think it was the Citadel that happened in.
He went through one checkpoint thing, and rather than removing it supercharged it into the physics gun.
Superpowers it. So that's what happens to her gloves, and you just get a sequence where you are just a god. There's no stress involved, except for if you can't throw grenades like Jordan, and you just fucking mow down all these Combine fuckers with lightning, effectively.
I got like the Iron Man gloves style thing knocked down, I think, by the end of it. Like, it was a case of you flicked your wrist, you fired, you sort of flicked your wrist for that. But every time I did the same thing with grenades, it just wasn't working. Like, eventually, when you had the zero gravity grenades, I managed to get into a little bit of a flow where I could just sort of push them in like a straight line through like zero gravity to get them to go where I needed to go to kill people. But mate, grenades were just not my friend in this game.
Yeah, it is just the sort of the power trip, the power fantasy moment to make you fully aware of just how fucking hardcore Alyx herself can be when you finally reach the end of that corridor. and you open the door to see the actual prison cell.
Oh God.
Also, my annoyance when the very last fabricator you come across, I was one resin off of getting like an extended mags on the SMG.
He did try his best to find like just one resin, and there was nothing.
It was annoying. I was so
I spent
annoyed with
fucking
myself.
hours trying to find all the resin, as Brendan can rightly point out, and I think I got less than the rest of you combined.
Yeah, like I had all the attachments by the end of it.
Also,
I think I was just missing one, like at the end.
Also, another thing that I was pissed off about was I had all the fucking ammo for these guns. I had max ammo on the pistol, and like probably I think I had like 200 rounds still left on the SMG, and about 20 in the shotgun. I was like, I've got a still load of ammo. You go into the vault. It fucking rips all your guns off you.
That's a theme, though.
I was like, oh.
And it makes sense for who you are about to meet, considering he has a penchant for doing that.
Yes.
So, yeah, that was Jordan's great moment with it that I just really fucking enjoyed. Was I pretty much just went silent when he got to the end of the corridor. And when he opened the door, there was just that moment, and then Jordan just went like, that's not Gordon's silhouette.
All right, this is a heavy spoiler. Heavy spoiler. If you don't want to listen, heavy fucking spoiler.
Our dear
it's the
friend.
fucking G-Man. It's the G-Man.
Yeah, so
it's fucking that fucking bastard. That completely caught me off guard. Jordan said he wasn't expecting him to be there. Fucking Valve got me hook, line, and sinker. I was like, oh, this makes sense. So you're going to free Gordon. Something will fuck up here. And then he'll come into City 17 on the train, because it's called, the chapter is called Point Extraction, which is the mirror to point insertion when he arrives. But of course, it's that little blue-suited fuck waiting for you.
So you were watching my stream, right, Brendan? When when we saw the kind of Judith Mossman-esque woman who may not or may be Judith Mossman, and I.
Wait, so hold on, quick one. Judith Mossman, are we thinking about the same woman? I said it was a white cardigan woman from the first. Right, yeah.
That's
what I definitely her, though, isn't it?
I think we all thought it was, but
it's not.
Shall I spoil it? It's not like a plot spoiler. It's a cancelled plot spoiler.
Spoil it.
I'm not gonna.
I'm gonna read it, but
I'm probably not gonna read it. But I genuinely thought in my mind when I was listening, because of the voice, basically. The silhouette to me looked like Judith Mossman, but the voice to my head sounded like an older version of Alyx.
Before you spoil it, can I maybe throw out a guess? Is it one of the women from Half-Life Decay?
Nope.
Fuck. Okay, never mind.
No.
Is it an older version of Alyx?
In the planned storyline for Half-Life Alyx, one of the original ones they were going to do, there was going to be a woman who had her brain and consciousness removed by the Combine and replaced. They don't say what with, some sort of control mechanism, who knows. Her name was going to be Han, H-A-N, H-A-H-N. She had like a bob cut. She was fully modeled. She was in the game. There was a whole storyline there for her. There's a whole lot going on than just her, but she was a significant sort of Breen-style character. And it was her model that's on the other side of that wall that you'll never see. And her model actually, her face is used earlier in the game when you meet Olga, Alyx's friend at the start. That is what her face was going to be originally. So Valve replaced this whole storyline and character, and there's just these little snippets of where their presence once was.
That was Olga was the one of the other City 17 inhabitants behind the gate, right?
And if you read one of the badges on her outfit, it says Han.
Yeah.
I love that shit. I
thought it was Judith Mossman.
I think it's Mossman. I think it's supposed to be Mossman, but the fact that they use this Han person now sort of throws it up into, have they just not decided on who that's going to be? Because it could just technically be this Han person anyway, and they'll just not address it in lore.
It could be someone else that they bring out into...
no, because in Half-Life 2, Mossman was sort of she was sort of a double, triple crossy sort of character, wasn't she? She was like a triple agent sort of thing. You know, she was working originally like for Eli and everybody, wasn't she? But also was working for Breen, but actually wasn't working for Breen. She was working for the Resistance the whole time anyway, or something like.
But you only find that out in episode 2.
Yeah, but
but
Alyx would have found that out earlier had she seen Mossman. So Mossman not actually being seen, communicating with the Combine advisor,
Rob, but then the ending specifically can change what happened.
Yeah, but in episode 2, not for the events of Half-Life 2 and all that. You know, is. Because she would have had that. She would have had that knowledge earlier, sort of thing. So that's why she was not seen, only heard.
It was definitely like it was one of those things. Of the moment I saw her, it was like, holy shit, this is like all linking in together.
Yep.
Because I feel like it sort of made more sense if it was going to be her, just to sort of explain, you know, where her connection with the Combine was and everything.
I think they probably have left it open so that people can go, it's most likely her. But then if Valve throw another fucking curveball like they have with Alyx, then we can go, okay, fine, yep, that completely wraps it up. Because as I'm sure we'll get into the finale of Alyx, there was a massive fucking curveball.
Oh, yes.
Yes, because the Mossman character sets you up for the belief that the weapon that's in the vault is none other than Gordon Freeman. However, they're careful about it. She simply says this guy raised hell in Black Mesa and just vanished. So naturally, Russell and Eli guide you on there. They say, oh my God, they've got Gordon Freeman.
So is that was the point when I was like, okay, shit, they've got Gordon. But I remember doubting myself, maybe like half an hour to maybe an hour, maybe a couple of hours after that point and going, fuck, is it actually Gordon? I don't think it's Gordon. It would be too obvious. It would be too obvious if it's Gordon. So I think it might actually be the G-Man, but I have no proof. And in my mind, and I think on my stream as well, I was sort of like, I don't think it's Gordon.
Yeah, for me, I'd started sort of going, oh, hang on. Like when it was revealed that it was the Vortigaunts that were powering the vault. Because like throughout, I think it was episode 1 and episode 2, and mushed in my head.
It's episode 2 you're thinking of. Yeah. Episode 2 is the end of episode 1, the Vortigaunts save you.
Yeah.
And then episode 2, they again interfere.
Yeah. Because they can sort of suppress the G-Man. And there was that one point in, I think it was episode 1. No, it was episode 2, isn't it? Where they're healing Alyx. Where they're distracted and the G-Man can actually contact you again for like the first time in ages.
Yeah, exactly that.
So I was like...
And it's interesting to see that sort of connection to all of this, where they've really leaned into where the Vortigaunts have some sort of play against the G-Man. So I'm intrigued to see where they go with that for, if there's a Half-Life 3, I should say.
It would just be another 13 years.
Yeah.
Well, I don't... Based off what Brendan and I have read, I don't believe a Half-Life 3 will take that much longer. I don't think it will take 13 years. I think that they've been waiting 13 years for Source 2 to actually be finished enough to create a highly polished game that they're all proud of. And I believe that Left 4 Dead 3, Team Fortress 3, Counter-Strike VR, and Half-Life 3, and Portal 3, I reckon some of them may be around the corner. Portal in VR, there may be a stretch, but you know, I can see Counter-Strike VR working very well. We've seen it with Pavlov. I think that Left 4 Dead in VR would be fucking incredible.
I don't ever think they'll do Counter-Strike in VR. Counter-Strike is too much of a sort of a dedicated esports now that moving it over to VR would just be stupid and would not be cost effective for Valve to do so, especially when there's so many VR shooter clones
there are VR
out
shooter
there.
Clones out there, but can you imagine Pavlov with Alyx's gunplay?
Well, I can imagine them maybe doing some other kind of shooter in VR, but I don't think it'll be Counter-Strike. It'll be something else that they'll put into it.
Yeah,
true.
They might use the Counter-Strike branding, but they won't ever make it like
The Half-Life 3
Counter-Strike
element
game.
of this is actually made so much more interesting just because of how they decided to do the retcon ending. So again, this is the heavy spoiler moment.
Turn
When
off
you-
now if you don't want to have a heavy spoiler, because this is a big one.
When you
This is
free
the
our
third
much
heavy
beloved
spoiler.
friend in the blue suit with a speech impediment, he brings you into stasis, the usual ending to a Half-Life game, where he reveals that a previous hire has not been cooperating, and you see the silhouette of Gordon Freeman in the background adjusting his glasses. And he says to Alyx, basically to thank her is the premise of this. He thanks her for freeing him and says, I can nudge things in a direction that you want. What would you like nudged? And she asks for the Combine off Earth. And during all of this, G-Man is phasing into multiple forms of himself and disappearing, sort of pushing this whole idea of like a quantum presence for him. And he says it will be too big of a nudge to get the Combine off Earth, but says, what if I can offer you something you didn't know you wanted? And makes a completely unnecessary theatrical floaty briefcase thing, which reassures me that the G-Man is clearly just a fucking drama queen, that he absolutely loves this shit. And
Or it's someone
Alyx
in
finds
I
herself.
am a messy bitch who lives for drama.
Alyx finds herself standing in the same warehouse looking at herself holding the dead body of her father. And G-Man reverses time just a little bit to the moment where the advisor is holding Eli in his grip. And Alyx has the green lightning from the vault. And G-Man offers her the chance to kill the advisor and free her father. And she does. Which is where I'm linking this into the Half-Life 3 thing. Because obviously this throws up a whole thing about time travel. Alyx is then put into stasis, she disappears, and the big reveal, as Jordan got to see after the credits, is you appear as Gordon Freeman. Eli is looking for Alyx, she's gone, he's swearing about it, he says he's going to kill the G-Man, and he hands you a crowbar and says, we've got work to do.
Oh, God.
And that's the fucking, you get the chills up your spine moment.
That was,
And-
as you said, properly chills up my spine when that happened. Just grabbing the fucking crowbar for the first time physically after playing Half-Life games since I was like in my early teens. So it's, God.
The ingenuity of this moment that I have now come to appreciate, and I really hope this isn't just me reaching. I hope that Valve has actually thought of this when they did this, because this retcon has done the timeline issue of, have they gone back in time and changed, or gone forward in time and changed everything? How does this work now? There's two different endings to these games. Because of them leaving it 13 years, Mark Laidlaw revealed what was going to be the original plot for Half-Life 3, the idea being that he would give the plot and modders in the community would build the game themselves. Valve obviously doesn't want to use something that's already been revealed, because there's no fun in that whatsoever. So they've retconned it and changed the storyline. And now there are two storylines. One in which Gordon and Alyx go after the Borealis, and the other one where Gordon and Eli go after the Borealis. One of these storylines will be done by Valve. The other one is currently being done by modding groups like Project Borealis. Has Valve purposefully engineered a situation in which they can allow the community to finish the original storyline themselves? Or is it just a fluke? Is that just a convenient outturn from all of this?
I think it's just a convenient fluke. I think like they wanted obviously something really big and punchy to end it on, rather than just, as we were all quite led to believe, you free Gordon Freeman, start off the events of Half-Life 2. But, ending it on something quite punchy that we've had 13 years to reel from, that was a heartbreaking moment in gaming history for everybody. Again, especially just the fade to black, as we all mentioned before. You're just left to sort of stew in that. And that's it. That was the last of Half-Life you saw for 13 years, which obviously, upset quite a few people, let's face it. That was shit.
Have you ever seen the video of the guy that his kid is literally called Eli?
Oh.
And his kid gets to play through Half-Life 2. The kid looks younger than 8. And he fucking, I think the video was done in like sort of 2016 sort of era. And it like shows like fucking Alyx crying over the corpse, and then the credits start to roll. And the kid's all like, you can see like he's properly fucking like heartbroken by it, and he like looks at his dad, and his dad, the cruel fucker, is filming this for YouTube. His dad's like, well, and the son's like, oh, I wonder what'll happen in the next one. And the dad's just like, there isn't a next one. They didn't make another one.
Oh.
And the kid's like fucking fully visibly upset. And I know that was probably emotional blackmail for Valve, but dear fuck did I feel that.
Yep.
I felt that in my chest.
Oh, God. But yeah, as far as like them going out with a bang on the new one goes, you know, that again gets the hype train rolling for not only a Half-Life 3, but hopefully a VR Half-Life 3. I mean, just the fact that you actually
3 would
grab
be VR
the
exclusive.
fucking crowbar is obviously they got to let it start smacking shit with that. Like, let's face it.
It was just perfection.
I'm pretty sure the amount of work that they put into Half-Life Alyx would mean that they can't not do a VR Half-Life 3. It wouldn't make sense.
Hey, they're already halfway there. They've got the hands sorted for Gordon. They've got a 3D model
And they got
already.
the crowbar. That's the whole
It's
game.
done, sorted.
Now
Done.
all they got to do
Sorted,
is write a story. Oh, how long can that take?
And
13
add a
years?
bunch more
Cool.
weapons. Come on, let's get all the like the crossbow and shit from Half-Life 2, like for VR and things. Pinning
Gary,
Combine
you
to the
just
walls.
said that you just have to write a whole story after 13 years.
Yep.
They fucking wrote the story for Half-Life Alyx in a matter of months.
No, I know,
like
I
that
know.
entire storyline.
It was a joke. It was an Alyx joke, a Valve joke.
That wasn't very Valve-y.
Just fucking incredible. But
It's a
yeah, like my
Christmas
one
joke.
hope from this, and thanks to the insight that Jeff Keighley has given with Final Hours, is that now that Source is done, they've been able to crank out Alyx. I think it was 4 years of development they did, and that's for their first major VR game, end to end, on their hardware. That took 4 years to develop, whilst they're doing other things in the background, one of which they started in 2018, apparently. This may be the moment of hope, because I think part of the thing he had said about was like the reception that Alyx got and how the team felt about it was this rejuvenating effect, because everyone got to do something creative again. They got to actually build a game from the ground up. And I'm hoping that maybe this is it. This is the big moment where they all get back into it. And I don't mind if Half-Life 3 isn't VR, even though that would be fucking incredible. And they've shown that they can make a really good game using VR. But I would be quite fucking glad if they could just go ahead and give us a Half-Life 3 sometime within the next decade.
Well, I think like that's the thing that I got from the documentary as well, is that they labeled the period of time when they have too many projects on at one time as the wilderness.
Yeah.
And it's like when you have so many things going on, you can't focus on the most important things that are right in front of you that need to get done. So there was one point where they had like 4 basically AAA titles in the works, or at least heavily conceptualized and starting to be put into development, that they had to just cut because they couldn't work off the Source 2 engine because it wasn't done. And there was one point in the Steam Labs the tech demo, they said that they used Source 2 for only one of those tech demos, and that was the Robot Labs one. The rest were made in Unity.
Yeah.
I was expecting a bigger response there. So basically, what they were saying was they couldn't do anything with the engine apart from what they'd already shown for the Source 2 Robot Labs. So that was 3 or 4 years ago now, as of recording. So that was a long time ago, and the engine wasn't ready. So they were constantly building this engine, and there was another engine they built as well, right, Brendan? Called is that voxel-based engine that looked kind of cool, kind of like Minecraft.
I thought that one was part of a Source 2 build, because it was going to be called Artifact, which then the name got taken for something else. It was going to be voxel. You help someone escape from prison and
Yes.
shit, and it's all voxel based, and you're able to basically break fucking anything. I think that was done on an early build of Source 2. I may be wrong there.
It
I'll
might
check
be,
Jordy.
yeah. Maybe I misread that. But what I understood was it was like a completely separate development to the rest of the Source stuff that was being done.
Oh yeah, okay, never mind. It was a unique engine. Yeah, voxel based engine.
But yeah,
They've just been doing fucking everything.
Yeah, so they went through a huge period of trying to make, like, they even said they were going to do a Left 4 Dead 3. They were going to do Alyx, not Alyx, but they were going to do Episode 3, Half-Life Episode 3, and it just, all of it just got canned, and it's unfortunate because it was all reliant upon Source 2, and now that Source 2 is out and Alyx is done incredibly well, and I would say it's even better than what I was expecting. It is the sequel and prequel to Half-Life that we all expected and deserved, and
yeah,
I love it. I think I couldn't have asked for anything better. In fact, I think my expectations for it were lower because I was like, okay, it's been a while, it's got a lot of hype. So I'm just going to go into it thinking it's going to be all right. You know, it's Valve. It's going to be a fun game. But they fucking knocked it out the park.
Yeah, definitely. I agree full-heartedly that it was just what we needed. It was probably could do with not having a 13-year wait next time.
Yeah, hold off on making Source 3,
yeah,
I reckon.
Yeah, maybe. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Or if you do make a Source 3, which, you know, I wouldn't be angry for them for making a Source 3. Just this time, if you do make a Source 3 engine, just release a game on Source 2, because we'll be happy with that. Just, like, maybe improve the textures a little bit, maybe refine the physics a little bit, like from the last iteration. Maybe add something new, just a little bit. Nothing too much, but, you know, just something in between that 13-year period that we, as gamers, we can go, cool, love it. What's next? Do you know what I mean? No, not 13 years. No, please.
So that's pretty much it, isn't it? We got any other bits that we wanted to discuss about Alyx? What was everyone's
We haven't discussed the actual
favourite?
ending,
Go on, Gary.
unless we don't wish to.
Yes.
I'd be open to a little bit of musing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fucking questions.
Yeah, go
We
for
are
it.
G-Man's employers.
Exactly.
Because he seems like there's that whole thing, you know, when he snaps up Gordon in the first place, he says, you know, I've taken the weapons. After all, they are government property. And he's clearly human of some sense. Who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah.
What's his game? The fact that they've done this, they have made him into this godlike figure at the end of this game. They've really reinforced that has just fucking opened up so many questions. It's the perfect trolling effort.
But do you feel like that's sort of one of those better off unexplained things? Like, whatever the answer is never going to be as satisfying as whatever you can imagine. And like whether there's some...
That's probably the most realistic outcome to this, where we have a Half-Life 3 moment where the Combine are defeated and driven off of Earth, and there's just like a fucking knowing arc from G-Man as he disappears. And it's just like, was this your plan? Was it? What are you doing?
Prepare
Get
for
back here,
unforeseen
fucking explain
consequences.
it.
Oh, not again.
It was a fucking monologue, you prick.
I'm really not at liberty to say.
God. Yeah.
I got a feeling that G-Man isn't not human.
Well, he could
Definitely.
be human, but maybe the altercation with Zen has turned him into something more than, potentially. But the fact that he has employers would lead me to believe that they are a completely separate entity to a human. So you're probably right. He's probably not human.
Because he like conjures Zen. Every time we've seen him in like these monologue situations, he always teleports you to an area in Zen or like projects an image of Zen around you. Even in Alyx, you're standing on one of those little squishy things, and you can see the planets in the back, like in the planets in the background and stuff like that. And you immediately know, right? Okay, I'm in sort of like the border world, and it's like he's definitely like he might have been a human that's been sort of taken over by an alien from Zen, or is he like the embodiment of the planet Zen? There's loads of like, there's got to be tons of theories online about how.
I don't know.
He is
the
about
Vortigons are
what
from
he
Zen,
is.
and they don't seem to like him.
But yeah, I think you've called it right, Rob. Maybe the best approach here is they do leave that as this unspoken mystery.
Yep.
Just, that I prefer that kind of unspoken mystery than the fucking 13-year cliffhangers. I'm fine with not explaining who G-Man is, as long as you resolve the rest of the fucking story.
Otherwise you end up going the fucking Ridley Scott route and explaining everything, and it's never as satisfying as the original mystery. Again, boom, alien, vast, unforgiving galaxy sort of thing. Many things out there we don't know. Who are the giant aliens? Where are those eggs from? All of that. It's all a mystery. None of it matters. Just let your mind terrify you with what you can come up with as an explanation. And then Ridley Scott, 40 years later, actually, don't worry, it was one of our androids that did it all.
There was actually one of the storylines which was never used as a plot. I will fucking reinforce this right now. This was just a concept that one developer suggested and was never put into practice or coding. This psychopath recommended a situation where you free the G-Man and he takes you through what's called the red door sequence, where he takes you through a series of red doors that bring you into events of Half-Life 2. As Alyx, you watch all these things happen, all the major sort of things, to remind you of what had happened throughout all of that. And then he brings you back the test chamber in Black Mesa, and you stop Gordon putting the crystal into the beam. And I'm so fucking glad they didn't do that, because if that was the way that ended...
Yeah, that would just been no Half-Life 3, fuck you. Like, none of it matters.
Well, I mean, they could have done that, but then accidentally set off another chain of events that made a different universe. But yeah, I fucking hate that, like, retcon multi-universe. I'm fucking Rick and Morty bullshit. I fucking hate that.
Holy shit, Dr. Kleiner is Rick.
1,000 years, Gordon. Sorry. 1,000 years unforeseen consequences.
Fucking hell! Someone do fan art of that.
Yeah, I would actually quite like to see Gordon as Morty. That would be quite funny.
But yeah, like I'm glad that storyline was just one of those spitball ones, because the reason he brings that up is sort of as a things could be worse. Also, I feel like that's just kind of so painfully obvious that Valve would quite literally never ever do that, because I remember those theories when they first started. Obviously, G-Man, Gordon Freeman, and the speech impediment coming from the fact that Gordon's mute, and green eyes versus sort of neon glowing alien eyes,
and the haircut almost, even though he had a ponytail in Half-Life 1, and he was ginger.
He cut it off though because he's a sellout.
Yeah. I would love to see old Gordon. I really would love to see old Gordon. Like kind of.
Yeah, I hope Gordon gets to live to an old age.
Old man Gordon.
True. Well, how old do you reckon Gordon is? I reckon he's like...
He's 27.
Fuck off, he's 27. He's great.
He was 27 when the Black Mesa incident happened, and then he was put into stasis, which means when he comes back in Half-Life 2, he is still 27, which thankfully means the whole thing with Alyx and Eli trying to get them together isn't quite as weird as I first thought. It's like, why are you trying to hook your bloody 19-year-old daughter up with a 50-year-old man?
I thought she was 17.
I think she's actually...
She's 19.
What age is Alyx? Let's find out. She's 19
years
Half-Life
old
Alyx.
and 24 during the events of Half-Life 2.
Thank fuck.
Oh,
Perfect.
God.
Okay, there we go. Whew.
Yeah.
I too thought she was maybe a bit too young for Gordon, because I thought Gordon was maybe like 50.
Yeah, I thought he was like a grown scientist. Turns out he was only 27.
You can be a grown scientist at 27, just we've not done much of our lives, boys.
I mean,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's completely fair. I'm not going to challenge that.
to be fair, after the events of Black Mesa and going through stasis, I'm pretty much certain, and I'm surprised that he still has a full head of hair. If I dropped a crystal in that fucking reactor, I would have just been like, "Okay, boys, I'm done."
That's going to be the
F4.
final moment. You know, part of the whole thing of Epistle 3, the plot line was going to be that finally get to the Borealis, and this is already canon with some of the descriptions that Kleiner says. The whole thing was whatever Aperture did with their teleportation device, turtles, the Borealis and part of its dry dock is found phasing between worlds. I think he's careful to say worlds and not time. The idea being that it's just teleporting to various places over and over again. And it's just this whole thing of, I'd imagine like Gordon going onto the ship and this crazy sequence where you're like fighting the Combine and trying to get this ship towards whatever the fucking like Combine headquarters is and use it as a weapon, I think was the whole talk. The idea was they were going to fly the ship into the fucking Combine HQ. And it's just like fucking G-Man puts him into stasis again, and Gordon finally speaks where he's just like, "Oh fucking hell," and starts like vomiting. I am so done with this shit.
So while we're on the topic of Aperture, obviously Aperture science is part of the law and part of the world. Do you think that Aperture may have something to do with the G-Man?
I'd imagine there's probably lore that hasn't been put into game mode, but G-Man has had some sort of influence there. Because he's had influence in fucking everything. He was there for the Black Mesa event. He's the one that provides the crystal in the first place that causes the resonance cascade. So there's something there that they haven't addressed yet. And more importantly, I just want them to have a sequence, have a portal gun, Half-Life.
That ending was so fucking bizarre as well, where you see him phasing out. Sorry, it just reminded me. I know there was a massive tangent, but when you said about him being in Black Mesa and probably being in Aperture as well, just reminded me of him phasing out at the end of Alyx, and I'm like, oh fuck, he could have been doing fucking anything then.
I don't know if Brendan
Yeah, but where's he off to now? That prick.
Although, in that little post-credits bit in Alyx, he's actually standing there on one of the walkways looking at you and Eli.
Yeah, Jordan missed that.
Did I?
Yeah.
You know,
He's up on the top
you
left.
know why,
marks off.
Brendan? It's because I was probably blindsided by just being so excited that Doug was there.
Yeah, you were. That was quite literally it. Because you looked to the right, and I was like, "Oh, here we go." Thinking you were going to like scan left, but instead, Dog appeared, and you literally just went, "Oh, it's Dog!"
Yeah, brilliant. That's what we were the whole game waiting for.
I think I was blindsided by the fact that I was holding the crowbar, and I just had goosebumps all over my arms, and I didn't even notice the G-Man was walking off.
Yeah, when I first played it as well, I was sort of just staring at Eli and like the fucking room surrounding me, and still after the entire length of the game being blown away by how good it looks. And then obviously being handed the fucking crowbar and feeling my goosebumps just rippling up my skin as I was just like, yes.
I'd like to go back and play that part again and just go, oh, hello. And hear Eli go, okay. That's a meme. That's a meme for our listeners. Check out
Corey Lado
on YouTube. He's fucking hilarious. Or they are fucking hilarious. I don't know if it's a guy or not, but check them out. And search, oh, hello, okay, SFM. And you'll find it. It's just fucking hilarious. It's a spoiler.
Yeah, there's a whole series of them.
It's fucking hilarious. I mean,
that final sequence though is just the noise of it is something that will live with me. I keep seeing these things on Twitter at the moment where someone goes, like one frame or one screen from a game that will haunt you forever, or you will always give you feelings forever, and all this sort of shit. And people posting, like all these heartbreaking moments and scary moments in games. For a sound that will just fucking stick with me for probably the rest of my life is when you go through the credits of the kind of small development team that did Alyx, and that class song is building up and getting like really fucking getting the beat going, and then it goes into that siren style crescendo where it's like brr, and Alyx, the title Alyx appears on the screen, and then it drifts into silence for just a moment, and then all you hear is like beep beep, vital signs critical, and it's just like
the fucking the HUV suit noise just gets me. Oh god! And the other song, although it's later than the HUV suit noise in Half-Life 2, the fucking what's the song called? Oh shit! Sorry, I'm gonna have to search this because it's just an incredible song.
They've always been fucking fantastic for their soundtrack,
yeah.
Especially with that weird sort of, I don't know how to describe it, like electronic rock kind of pendulum sounding stuff.
Brendan was watching me.
Triage at Dawn.
Triage at Dawn.
Watching me have a little bit of a boogie to the music at the end, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
Be bouncing my head up and down while the credits are rolling.
Triage at Dawn literally hits me in the feels every single fucking time I listen to it. It's so short, but so good. And Rob, I would very much love you to put a clip of that at the beginning or end of this episode, if we're allowed to.
Oh.
Yeah, like, I don't think they're going to fucking come against you for using a wee clip of that. It's just... Like, it's one of those things of throughout Half-Life Alyx as well, when it goes into the action sequences, there's these really great wee bits of music. And then I love the fact that they saved that one track for the credits because they knew what was coming. It builds up this whole thing because there is a kind of that little like piano thing that sort of goes at the start of it and all. It keeps that nice sort of emotion building up into a crescendo, and then bam, you are Gordon Freeman standing there getting a crowbar handed to you. It was such a fucking perfect welcome back to the series moment. Like, it was the perfect full stop on that game.
Now, this is the thing. I can forgive them for 13 years.
Yeah.
But I don't think I could forgive them again.
That's exactly it.
Especially after that. Like, that cliffhanger, that deserves another game. And I think they know that. And I think the hype that Alyx has given them must have lit a fire under their ass.
Definitely.
And I fucking hope so. And if any Valve employees are listening to us, we four white men speak for a lot of other white men.
You better release that game, or so help me, we'll probably complain in the exact same way we've been doing for the past 13 years.
Where's our Half-Life 3?
Please.
And if not, we may actually just switch over to Epic.
Yeah. That's it, Gary. Get him where it hurts.
The wallet. And
fuck your R&D department. What's it done?
I'll get us a link for the Project Borealis thing as well. Those guys are still working away on it. They've actually got a pretty sizable team doing a full-on like game development cycle for it. So hopefully at some point will also be done.
I'm just on the Combine Over wiki, and I've noticed that they actually made models for Alyx for Kleiner, but just never used them because they didn't find a way of putting them into the game.
Yeah. There's a lot of that happens.
Yeah.
Gordon, I'm hungry.
Because Russell was going to be someone entirely different the first time around. I don't know whether you guys remember in Half-Life 2 when you're doing the coastal road, there's the sequence where the antlions are popping out if you stand on the sand.
Yeah.
And some poor fucker's lying dead with his friend, another citizen, and his friend goes like, "Oh no, Laszlo, he was the finest mind of his generation." That was going to be Laszlo originally.
Oh no. Oh fuck.
But I think it's the prequel sort of dilemma where your biggest problem is when you're doing a sequel or a prequel, to a game like Half-Life that has been out, 13 fucking years and is like its plot is it's such a major thing that everyone knows about it. It's difficult to do a prequel and do anything new in a way that's going to keep people interested. So even something as simple as let's have that guy be Laszlo, it's like People are just going to be like, oh, that guy dies. That's a throwback. Yeah, we get that.
Yeah.
Whereas
Although,
Russell leaves
at the same
route.
time, like the fact that it was like somebody I had not heard of at any point during Half-Life 2, Episode 1 or Episode 2, I was like, oh, he's going to fucking die, isn't he?
Yeah, that was my fault as well. I was like, when's Russell going to die?
Quite on edge for like a lot of it because I was like, there's going to be that bit where you just hear like the door get kicked in and just... and
especially
then just
as it's a
gunfire.
comedic...
Yeah,
especially as
because it would have been more heartbreaking.
Exactly.
The comedy sidekick dies horribly, and you're powerless to do anything about it.
The betrayal of Adam. Adam Ryan? No. Ryan. Fucking Bioshock. What's his name?
Andrew Ryan.
Andrew Ryan. Fucking hell. Adam Ryan? Who the fuck am I talking about? But yeah, it's like that betrayal. Like someone who. Also, spoiler if you haven't played Bioshock.
God, I think that's
that's older than Half-Life 2. So
would you kindly get to the point?
But to the like where someone is narrating you through the whole game and you trust them, it's either they betray you or you get let down. So I feel like if I was the same with Rob. Like I hadn't heard of Russell, and I was like,
Ooh, you have just reminded me, actually, in a very loose way. Part of the reason why Russell is a whole thing throughout this game was because Campo Santo, the development company that did Firewatch, was bought up by Valve. They just snatched those guys. And as a result, their game was put into stasis, suitably enough, because they were busy working on Half-Life Alyx. And it's sort of the whole thing. Firewatch, you had a friend that you talked to through your radio the whole way. The influence is quite apparent there. If you get the final hours thing, there is a 3D tour of the Valve office. On someone's desk is a gigantic, well-made, looks hardback bound art book for In the Valley of the Gods. Now, if that game was supposed to be cancelled, why is there a great, big, lovely-looking art book sitting on someone's desk? Generally.
Maybe it's a VR title now.
Ooh. Now you have my attention.
Now you've piqued my underwear.
But yeah, now that they have finished with Alyx, I'm kind of hoping that maybe Valve will put a wee team together for working on In the Valley of the Gods. Get that out as well. It's just this is where the whole thing of that wilderness that you described comes in, because now that this is done, and Source 2 is done and released and ready to be built on, Valve now has this thing of, great, now we can get back into making games, but they still have that flat hierarchy of where someone literally just calls a meeting and says, this is what I'm thinking, and it only happens if enough people are like, yeah, okay, I'm interested in that, I'll hop on and do X, Y, and Z. Like, they literally just get like they'll have like a whiteboard and they'll put the project up on top of it and do various tasks. And someone will come along with a post-it note and just stick their name on the post-it note and slap it on the whiteboard. And that's it. It's completely up to Valve employees what they make. So it's all kind of up in the air on what actually gets made.
Also, boys, another quick tangent. I do think that we should all stop calling antlions and refer to them from now on as leggies.
Leggies.
I
like it.
Leggies is such a better name.
I was thinking of I've said to Brendan, but I was thinking of replaying Half-Life 1, Half-Life 2, or actually Half-Life 1, probably not Decay, but maybe what was
Opposing Force?
Opposing Force, Blue Shift?
Yeah, well, don't do Blue Shift, it's shite.
Yeah, it was a bit shy, wasn't it? Opposing Force. What was there was the third one, right? Or was that just Decay?
I would recommend that you just do the Black Mesa.
Oh yeah, sorry, Black Mesa.
Together.
Yeah. So Black Mesa.
Because it is superb.
Half-Life 2, maybe Lost Coast. I'm not too sure about that one, but Episode 1 and Episode 2, and then replay Alyx again. Because even though only playing through Alyx once, I can already see that there is potential for a replay, even if it's just for achievement's sake. If you're into that, but like purely just to witness that fucking game again, I cannot wait.
Yeah. Do we have anything else we want to talk about? Are we all going to say what our favourite part of the game was?
For me,
I mean,
I think either the Jeff section, just because that felt so unique and so interesting and so pants-shittingly horrifying as well while you're playing through it. Coupled with the feel that you get during that post-credit sequence, that spine-tingling. Those for me were the big two.
I think I'm going to second Rob on literally both of those points. Like, the Jeff sequence is incredible, and it could be an entire game in its own right. Even the darkness sequences before that could be a game in their own right. Like a full horror game could be made like that. But the Jeff sequence was unique and terrifying. And again, like Rob said, picking up that fucking crowbar at the end, just speechless.
Brendan?
This is a tough one for me. If we're talking like my favorite moment, obviously there's the major one of, that post credits thing, as Rob had described. Like, that's the bit that will sort of live with me.
I think that's one for all of us. Yeah, we'll always say the post credit scene, but other than that, what is probably your favourite?
It's always going to be not just the start, but when I booted up the game the first time and you find yourself standing in front of, like, I remember when the concept art was released, when they announced the game, the image was Alyx standing there at an opening in the Combine wall about to go through, and you can't see anything. It's just her standing at the opening. And then the game launches and you're standing for the first time in a Half-Life game in 13 years at that opening in the wall. That was it. That was that big fucking moment of, holy shit, this is happening.
Yeah.
And that's another one of those things that will always live with me. Something as simple as that. Valve made a point of putting that there. I had no idea what was on the other side of the wall, but I was about to fucking go through.
Yeah, for me as well, like that whole main menu is actually quite atmospheric as well. Like, just like the sort of dust and sort of ash falling out of the sky and the broken cars next to you, and obviously the massive oppressive Combine wall as well. I was like, this is a menu.
I think weirdly enough as well, the logo just got me in the feels. Like, seeing Alyx written out, when it animated in, I was like immediately just like, fuck.
Yeah.
Like, fuck. I cannot believe that I'm actually getting to play a sequel prequel to Half-Life.
It was almost, it's like an unfair advantage that they had because there was just so much baggage there. And in fairness to them, it wasn't like that sort of thing. The bar was set low because of the weight. They nailed it. They just completely knocked it out of the park. From start to finish, that game was fucking fantastic.
Yeah, I don't even think that that's coming from us who are big fans of the franchise. I think, like, when it wasn't like watching the finale of Game of Thrones where it was so hyped up that it was fucking shit. This was so hyped up and delayed for such a long time that they had that time to refine it and go, right, this isn't going to work, but this will. And they just, like Brendan said, fucking nailed it. They couldn't have possibly have done it better, in my eyes.
I can't remember. I'm going to have to look up the wording for it exactly. But when it went live, Gabe sent out, it was like an email / press statement thing. And it was this whole self-reflective thing of, it's been a long time. A lot of work has been put into this and a lot of hopes have been hinged on this. And he sort of goes like, did we do it? Did we meet your expectations? We don't know. You guys do, because everyone that was playing it at that point. And it's that sort of thing where you just want to fucking say to Valve, like, yes, you fucking did it. You fucking nailed it. Do it again. Give us another one, you pricks.
Now, I worry that this is where they get performance anxiety and they they can't meet expectations because they, once again, fucking knocked the ball out of the park. Seems like they can do no wrong.
Maybe This is the one time I'll allow myself to be an optimist. They have finally finished that fucking engine. They have released the best VR title that's available, hands down, by a fucking country mile. And now they're ready to work on what could be a golden age of PC gaming coming from Valve. Left 4 Dead 3, possibly a Team Fortress follow-up. The Orange Cube would be a fucking perfect one, but Portal 3, Left 4 Dead 3, Team Fortress 3, possibly another Counter-Strike update, because they've done Global Offensive and that's run its course in esports for a good while now. There's just everything there, and of course Half-Life 3.
I think
possibly other
Left 4
VR
Dead
spin-off titles
would be like a tremendous draw. As that,
VR,
rather than
though.
being VR, Left 4 Dead would be a tremendous draw for VR as well. Like it would be more of a draw, I think, than doing like a CS:GO or a Team Fortress in VR. As obviously they're a bit competitive, and I think people again that are quite new to it would be a bit like, I want something a bit more. I'm not up against everybody sort of thing initially, sort of thing. Whereas jumping in with
competitive VR game.
yeah, I know, but I'm just saying
jumping
in with 3 of your mates
base
in VR to cooperatively murder your way through a series of like levels and shoot a ton of zombies, blowing them apart in VR. How good would that feel? Like,
It's the perfect
this has never been a
thing for
choice
VR
thing,
game.
though, because Valve has always catered for all of this. They would do Left 4 Dead 3 whilst also doing... Like, they are responsible for esports in a large extent. Dota 2 and Counter-Strike are their fucking babies, and they have championed esports the whole way. So I would not be surprised if they went balls to the wall for whatever will replace Counter-Strike or Dota 2, because they want the follow-up. They want to keep holding that crown, and they've clearly put a lot of effort into it. But that's not a mutually exclusive thing. They've done that before whilst also producing things like Portal 2 and Left 4 Dead 2 and Portal 1 and fucking the Half-Life series. So it would be grand. As long as they work on fucking everything and just go ahead and give us the sequels to everything we want, everything will be fine. Valve, get to work.
Because they won't necessarily, I'm not saying 100% certain that they'll make a Counter-Strike VR or they'll make a Team Fortress 3 VR. However, there is a space in VR for competitive gaming. There is no competitive VR game that I'm aware of as of yet. And Valve could easily dominate that market. Easily.
But there isn't a market, Gary, so...
Oh no, like
the base
they
market
did
is
try.
still small, but that
I
was
did
the whole point of
see
the hardware.
Onward was previously an esports thing, the VR one, but they've now nerfed that to shit. So I don't think that's happening again for a while. So
Good night,
but that's what I mean. Like,
prince.
if Valve made a Counter-Strike VR, I'm pretty sure a majority of Counter-Strike players would go, "Well, fuck, I'm gonna have to get a VR headset now, aren't I?"
No,
I don't think they will.
won't.
I think Counter-Strike's strength, much like Team Fortress, is in the fact that it was accessible. You could run Counter-Strike on fucking everything.
Yeah, true.
Like, Source was designed to
You
run on
can
fucking
run
everything.
Global Offensive on anything nowadays.
Of course, I'm being unfair. It wasn't Source originally. It was fucking
1.6.
old Source engine.
Gold Source.
Odd, yeah. Like, it ran on everything, and it's part of the reason that Counter-Strike became a cult thing, because you could just fucking download that for free and install it on your fucking school
Yeah,
LAN.
CS
So,
1.6 we had, me, John Harrison had on a USB stick. Sorry, for two of my closest friends, John and Harrison. We 1.6 on a pen drive, and we installed it on every computer in our school classroom, and we LAN partied with the IT department's technician, because he was fine with us playing those games at lunchtime, and then he'd just go through and automatically wipe all the computers of the files afterwards. This is the IT technician who we approached as 3 15-year-old boys and asked him if he could run us some Counter-Strike servers, in which then we made one of the most successful zombie escape Counter-Strike source servers in the world.
And yeah, that's exactly it. Like, I don't think they'll do Counter-Strike VR. Certainly not exclusively. They are going to do VR games. They have put a fortune into designing definitely the best VR
They're a
headset
third
on
of the
market.
VR headset market.
Yeah, they're third because Oculus and the other ones are cheaper, and the Valve Index costs £1,000 fucking pounds. If they can knock the price down a bit, I'd imagine things would change. They did this is a Final Hours thing as well. They put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into the design of the Valve Index that came off the back of the HTC Vive, which was their baby as well. And like those off-ear speakers that has Gary and Rob. That came off the back of someone who like literally works on all this fucking sound design stuff, in a sense of there's a science behind it where it is off your ear, because when you've got like earphones that go directly into your ear canals, it doesn't sound real. So they did this off ear thing because they know it sounds like you're actually in a room. They put that much effort into literally just the fucking audio on these things. I think they are going to double down, and hopefully over the next couple of years, we're going to see some fucking incredible VR titles out of them as well as their other ones. And I will not blame them if they make Half-Life 3 a non-VR title. And I certainly won't be mad about it, because it'll be a fucking incredible game either way, because Valve just seems to make that their business whenever they bother to fucking make games.
I think I would be a little upset. Jordy. I feel like we would have been a bit cock-teased, actually. Like, go on, grab that crowbar. Yes, in VR. Grab it physically. What's that? You're using the Index? Oh, did you feel that on your hands?
Christ, Rob, you're literally so close to the mic.
Away from your mic.
Sorry, I was doing that
further away. Fucking
okay.
No, further away.
It was not a good effect, Rob. That was like
you're gonna have to edit that,
okay.
Rob.
Yeah, you're gonna have to edit that right out, because that was right in our ears. Go again.
God. Yeah, in my ideal world, we'll get a full Half-Life 3 in VR. It would be fucking incredible.
Oh, yes.
But I feel like if they do that, I don't know. It just depends on what approach they take to it. Because their risk is that the market for VR, even after Alyx, hasn't exploded in the way that they want. Alyx was a huge success, and they sold a shitload of Valve Index headsets and others, like myself, who bought fucking Rifts in anticipation for Alyx. But even then, there's nowhere near the same community as just standard PC gaming and mobile gaming, as we've seen cross-platform shit like Fortnite.
Well, I think
it's all about what their plan is.
To that point as well, I feel a lot of games companies were very, very dubious about making a VR title, because they're like, oh, it's just a fad, it won't catch on. And now that Alyx has been released, I think a lot of companies are like, fuck, okay, maybe we can make a VR game because people are buying it. So maybe we just do it. So I reckon Alyx is the first wave of AAA title VR games that's going to pave the way for the rest. So I reckon in like 1 to 2 years' time, we'll see AAA VR titles coming in our ears. Sorry, I couldn't resist that one. We'll see them being developed and announced, all because of Alyx and Alyx's success. Hell, we've already got Medal of Honor being announced.
Yeah.
Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners. That is also quite a well-polished game from the looks of things. Boneworks, even though it's indie in a way, is polished to shit. So, there's a lot of potential in VR games. I just feel like all the big AAA devs and publishers are just like, not touching that, not enough money.
Yeah. I hope you're right, because it's one of these things of, I like the idea and the story behind, using the Quake engine. They made Half-Life 1, and it basically spawned a genre of narrative shooters. And then Half-Life 2 came out, and again, it spawned this whole gameplay system, which other games tried to mimic. Each time, each generation, it has done something that has been definitive, something that has defined a genre and expanded gaming as we know it. And I would fucking love it if this is the next stage, where Half-Life Alyx has made a load of studios just go, hang on, yeah, we could make something with this and it could be genuinely good.
Imagine just like a much more polished version of Pavlov. That would be fucking
You just
incredible.
really fucking want Counter-Strike VR, just email them. Just send one to gaben at valvesoftware.com.
At
I don't know,
valvesoftware.com.
Ben. I'm pretty sure someone in Valve has already put that idea on the table, and other people have probably gone, I'm not fucking working on another fucking Counter-Strike game. All I've been doing for fucking 13 years is making fucking hats for Counter-Strike. So they're probably not doing a Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
We will see. So
I just hope that VR hasn't been a waste of time.
The one takeaway I think that will always be the underline on this is after 13 years, Alyx was fucking incredible. So as we sit here and wait to see what happens, we can at least now be reassured that it will be worth the wait.
indeed, that is definitely a good place for us to sort of round off this episode.
I hope we won't be 40 by that time, though.
Yes. Please cave in. So yeah, thank you all for listening to this episode. We've been discussing a lot of stuff, and we've
Fuck's sake.
Well, let's
Wow, you've been
cut
listening
that.
for the past hour and 40 minutes, haven't you, Jordy?
Yeah. No, let's yeah, we'll cut that.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode on, I don't know, fucking Call of Duty or
Yeah.
something.
Were we talking about 2D games again? We're not cutting that, Jordy. That's staying in.
Fuck. Well, we'll end it there then. So,
Do you want to do another outro just in case?
No, he's going to keep it
Yeah.
anyway, so fuck you.
It's late.
Yeah, it is late. It's
Everyone.
very late. You were
it's
late to
very
the
late. It's my
podcast
bad.
recording, so
Let's wrap it
fun.
up. Let's wrap it up.
So, guys, where can we find us online if we wanted to go see some of our other stuff? Rob.
You can find me on YouTube at Rob Coxley, and I'm also going to be jumping back onto Twitch, and I hopefully get my new graphics card. Yeah.
Yes, that'll be something we can talk about next week in the news that you've had some issues.
Yeah, if I've had good news, I will share it. If not, don't fucking ask.
Gary?
You can also find me on YouTube at Endash, and if you would like to see the whole Alyx playthrough, I have all of the live stream VODs that I recorded up on my channel, so you're more than welcome to have a look at that. And you can also find me on twitch.tv/Endash, and I'm sporadic.
What a great plug. That was a really good plug for those Alyx videos there. I love it.
No worries. I need to get the views up because
Exactly.
I'm struggling.
And you can also find me streaming over on Twitch at Jordy Wiz. And Brendan, where we find you?
You can find me, Jordan, in the test.
Oh, fuck.
It's good. Right. Thanks, guys.
That was a good one.
We will see you all next Tuesday. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.